What if falling apart isn't a failure? What if it's the first honest thing you've done in years? We're taught to fear collapse, to keep it together, to push through, to maintain the image of being okay. But have you ever considered that what looks like falling might actually be unfolding? Not the end of you, but the beginning of something far more real. What if the breakdown isn't a breakdown, but a breakthrough? I'm not here to motivate you, not here to say, if you're broken, fix yourself. You've heard that everywhere else. This isn't that. I won't tell you to rise or chase your potential, because sometimes life asks something deeper, not to rebuild who you were, but to dissolve what you never were. Here, we don't shame the collapse. We honor it, gently, honestly, together, not to patch it up and move on, but to sit with what's been buried beneath it all. Today's idea is this: falling apart is often how the deeper self re-emerges. We think of it as weakness, dysfunction, a personal failure. But in many psychological and spiritual traditions, collapse isn't the end of growth. It's the beginning of a more truthful life. When the strategies no longer work, when the masks no longer fit, when the roles you've played start to feel hollow, the psyche doesn't always rise. Sometimes it crumbles, not out of brokenness, but out of refusal. A refusal to keep betraying what is real. Let's pause and ask, why do we fear falling apart? More than we fear living inauthentically. What are we really protecting when we try to hold it together? Is your sadness a sign of dysfunction or a protest against a false life? And if your old self is falling apart, who or what is watching it happen? Isn't it strange that something within you watches the unraveling but doesn't unravel? Maybe that witness is your truest self. And maybe the collapse isn't chaos, but clarity. Seeds break to become trees. Caterpillars dissolve into goo before they grow wings. Forests burn to renew their own soil. And yet, when we fall apart, we panic instead of pausing. We shame instead of listening. Here's how this gets misunderstood in real life. You cry for days and say, "I'm falling apart," but you're actually feeling for the first time in years. You leave a job that drained your soul and people say you've given up, but you've just begun to listen inwardly. You start forgetting how to perform in front of others and assume you're losing yourself, when in truth, you're just losing the mask. You're not weak, you're shedding, you're not failing. You're refusing to continue pretending. But because society worships productivity and image, we interpret stillness as laziness, grief as drama, disorientation as failure. So we rush to fix, to explain, to numb, instead of letting the unraveling do its deeper work. Let's delve into the core of this idea. In psychology, falling apart is often the collapse of what Carl Jung called the persona, the social mask we wear to survive and belong. This mask is necessary early in life, to function, to be accepted, to play the game. But if it becomes all we know, we lose access to the self beneath it. Jung warned, the death of the persona is terrifying, because when the outer structure collapses, we feel naked, lost, undefined. But this collapse is also the doorway to what he called individuation, the integration of the real self. From a trauma perspective, thinkers like Bessel van der Kolk show that many breakdowns are not signs of dysfunction, but the body's attempt to finally process what was frozen. What you call falling apart may be your nervous system thawing, finally feeling the grief, the fear, the anger you had to bury to survive. In that sense, collapse is not regression, it's restoration. Existential philosophers like Søren Kierkegaard and Rollo May also saw breakdown as the moment where your false self no longer holds up under pressure. you face what may be called existential anxiety, the terrifying, liberating question, if I am not who I've pretended to be, then who am I? Spiritually, this idea echoes across traditions. In Buddhism, the path begins not with success, but with dukkha, suffering, confusion, emptiness. In Christian mysticism, there's the dark night of the soul, a period of spiritual dryness and disillusionment which precedes deeper union with the divine. In Sufism, the ego must be annihilated, not to destroy you, but to reveal the one behind the illusion of separation. So what we call falling apart might simply be the disintegration of what was never real in the first place. It's not the death of you, it's the death of the role. And roles can die without killing the self. Let's end with this. If everything in you feels like it's falling apart, maybe it's time. Maybe what's collapsing was never yours to carry. Maybe what's leaving was never love, just loyalty to a version of you that couldn't breathe. You're not falling apart. You're falling through layers of falsehood, illusion, and performance. And when it feels like there's nothing left, that's when the real self begins to speak. Not in shouting, not in certainty, but in a quiet knowing. This is what's true now. Let it fall. Not to destroy you, but to reveal you. If this helped you sit a little deeper in your own becoming, then I've done my part. You don't need to pat yourself up today. You don't need to rise. You just need to know. This unraveling has meaning, and when it all feels like too much to carry, I'll be here. Not with answers, but with space, so you can fall and find that you are still here, not broken, but finally whole.